I'm beginning to understand what it means to be free. And I think that, it's something I've been thinking about for a very long time. Really, what it means to be free, and whether almost it means the ability to do anything or the ability to do what is freeing in a sense. Because, I've been thinking about this a lot just in terms of, you know, living a godly life and then sinning. And in a worldly sense, not necessarily thinking about that example, but in a worldly sense, whenever I thought about being free, I imagined an open space and then a cage. And I thought for so long that being free was the ability to enter and exit the cage whenever you wanted and being able to permeate the free space whenever you felt like it. But I'm really starting to understand that being free is not necessarily being able to go inside and outside of the cage, but is rather existing outside of the cage as a whole. I think that so often we try to almost believe that freedom is the ability to choose whatever you want to do. But I don't think that's really what it is, or I'm beginning to understand that's not truly what it is, or at least there's more to it. I think that freedom is freedom from anything that can limit you, anything that can restrict you. And I think that could be, paradoxically, it could almost be a bit limiting by itself. I think that part of being free and part of having freedom is almost the restriction or the limit of not doing anything that can take away that freedom. So I'm just really starting to understand that being free isn't necessarily the ability to do anything, but it's almost the ability to do what is freedom and the ability to turn away from anything that limits your freedom. So I just think that in our day-to-day lives, it's important that we almost just look at everything around us and we try to find for ourselves what is freeing and what is limiting, and we stay away from what is limiting, even if it's something that we feel like we want to do in a sense. Like I said, I was thinking about this a lot in terms of just like sin and then also following God's word. And I'm starting to understand a lot more that, you know, so many of the things I thought before, like, oh, this would restrict me. I don't want to be restricted. Those things by themselves, they were restricting me even more. So it's almost freeing yourself from anything that can restrict you. That's what freedom is. Freedom isn't the ability to enter and exit the cage, but it's rather the presence you experience by being outside of the cage. And, we may think, oh, but isn't that a bit limiting because that's saying that I can't go inside the cage? But I think that's a very, a worldly and a very human mindset to have. But I think spiritually that it's important that we free ourselves from the cage and almost we don't look back to it. Because I think so often we free ourselves from what's been limiting us, but then we look back to it as something that, oh, I missed this. And then we end up going back to it. But I think it's important that we just focus on what the freedom that we do have rather than the almost limits that we put on ourselves by having that freedom. Because like I said, once you're free from the cage, you start thinking, oh, but if I'm truly free, then I should be able to go back into the cage. But that's not what freedom is. That's just almost replacing that restriction on yourself, which is the antithesis of being free to begin with. That's all to say. I just think that it's important that we almost look at everything in our lives and we try to see what is freeing us and what is limiting us, and that we almost limit what is limiting us from having an impact on our lives and having an impact on us internally. And in doing so, we end up being more free than if we did give ourselves the option of doing anything that we wanted, because that just allows what's limiting us to take control of us over, what would obviously bring us more freedom. I have a Bible verse that goes with this pretty well. It's taken from Galatians 5, verse 1, and it says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." So, just like what it says here, I think that Christ and God, they've already set us free. So it's important that we don't go back to what has been limiting us, and under the guise that the ability to do so is freedom. Even though, obviously to an extent, God has given us free will. But it's important that we use that free will and we almost maintain it rather than allowing ourselves to be controlled by things outside of us. Yeah. Thank you for watching. That's really all I have to say for this video. I hope you took something from it, and have a great day.